Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast with your host, Jacob Liberta, and as always, our friend of the show, Jackson LaFave, here tonight to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. As you can see, Bailey's out right now, and he'll be back soon enough to rip on all of our favorite teams. But for the time being, we're going to break it down for you. And before we get into that, I just want to remind you again, hit that subscribe button below to continue to consume all of our Minnesota sports content we have to offer, as well as hit the like button if you don't feel great about this Vikings team right now, as we don't, and we're about to get into. And also give us a follow and interact with us on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter at North Star Takes and Instagram at North Star Takes Podcast. And feel free to shoot whatever opinions you want on us. I'm always down for a good old hearty conversation about our teams, whether I agree with you or not, but I can definitely have an exchange with you at another time. But for now, Jackson, let's start unwrapping this mess from the Lions game first. Then we'll get into the Steelers game impending here in a couple days on Thursday night. So, what are our thoughts? Where are we at after this just crushing, devastating, but possibly good long term loss to the Lions, the 0-10-1 Dan Campbell led Detroit Lions?
Yeah, well, Alberta, first of all, I don't mean to pat myself on the back here, but I did predict that we would lose this game.
You
Did
did.
I not? Yes.
Yep.
And
I
I
have
can
written proof of it.
and I can and I can kind of lay out a few reasons why I believe that we did. First of all, this team just it's just a classic Vikings script. I felt like I also predicted that we would win against the Packers because I just feel like we play the Packers really well. We're kind of on a hot streak, but then I knew this whole lead up to that Lions week just seemed kind of weird. It was kind of odd, It just seemed like the Lions had a couple extra days of rest leading up to that game. It seemed like we were just kind of going through the motions. It almost seemed like it was kind of quiet, not a lot of talk around the team. And it just felt like we were going to definitely play down to our competition like we usually do. But this Dan Campbell Lions team, even though they lack talent and they're very bad, their quarterback is horrible. Their coach is really just zero X's and O's. He's more kind of a rah-rah type guy, but this team plays hard though, and I felt like if the Vikings were just going to kind of sleepwalk into that game and expect we would just be corporate and just kind of go through the motions. Kirk would put up good stats. Zim would scheme. We'll be on the next flight out of the Lions with a nice little 10-point victory. I thought that would be an L, and I predicted that would happen. Just a disaster across the board. And I'm done being mad at this team. I'm done being frustrated. I'm just content. I don't care about this team until we're going to move on. We're gonna move on from Zim, and overall, this is almost just like almost a good win, like you alluded to. And like I'm kind of sick and tired of cheering for L's. With the past couple seasons, it seems like with Zim, but at least finally we know that Zim is going to be fired after this season. At least we finally know. It's almost a sigh of relief. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I definitely think it's giving us peace of mind here. I know it's kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off, I think, with a really bottom-of-the-barrel loss to the worst team in the league. And I think that was just a lackadaisical performance. Like you said, I think we just expected to waltz in there and put forth any sort of effort and we win the game. But that's not the case when you play this Stan Campbell Lions team, just because these guys are pretty gritty, and we're not a gritty team because Kirk never wins ugly. And I'm so done with Kirk. I'm so done with this coaching staff. I'm so done with this aura, this culture. It's got to go. I think you got to clean house everywhere and just start over, start from scratch. I think you have a lot of talented players that are in place already offensively. That's about it. I think there's got to be a lot of retooling, a lot of rebuilding here to do. So I think you got to go out and find the right coach. And potentially I'd say you might need to clear the front office out too. Besides Rob Brzezinski, I think I'd keep him just to crunch the cap. But I guess I don't know how tied he is to Spielman or not. But I think that's also worth exploring. So I think there's a lot of decisions to be made this offseason, but it's good that we know where this is going, just because there's no ambiguity here or any unknowns whether we will or won't we, because it doesn't look like we're making the playoffs anymore. So then that means there's no way we bring Zim and Co back. So I think that's going to make for a fun offseason this year. And just because there's going to be a lot happening, a lot going on, a lot changing. So I think that's going to be great for the fans. But again, like you said, Jackson, I'm tired of the same old story. I hate rooting for losses these last couple of years because we get in these spots where it's like we're not really going to compete. So you might as well lose, get the good draft picks. So you have a better chance of taking a better player. So for instance, like right now, I think we're holding the 10th pick in the draft. So like that's cool. So at this point, I probably would rather lose, get the coaching staff out of here and spoon feed our new head coach just a great draft pick, and not only the first round but every round really. So then like your second round pick is almost borderline first round pick too. So I think that's something to be excited about from this from such a dismal performance against a bad team. So I guess to recap, not really looking at this game specifically, but looking at it from a bigger picture, 1,000-foot view. I think it's just that this is a turning of the page to a new era of Vikings football. And I think now we're just in a lame duck session here the last few weeks of the season because I think there's a realistic chance Zim would have gotten fired by now. But at the same time, it's like, who are you really going to promote into your into an interim position? Because everybody, it's a friends and family only business here, it seems. So you got Clint Kubiak on the offensive side, Gary, good old buddy Zim, and then you got his son as the co-defense coordinator. That's about as bad as Kirk Ferentz having his son be the offensive coordinator at Iowa and just nosedive them into not being able to actually compete for anything. So I go on and on about this, but I think it's just nice, like you said, it's just affirmation that the end is near. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to get those hires right in the offseason. But for now, I think we're just along for the ride and waiting for this to end, which kind of sucks. We're in that spot at the beginning of December, but it is what it is. There's not a whole lot we can do. So I guess speaking to that and replacements and things like that for Zimmer, Spielman, whoever, I guess I'm more primarily focused with who's going to be the next head coach here. And Jackson, I'd be curious to get your 2 cents who you want to be the next head coach of this team. I know there's a lot of names out there that have been floated around, but is there anybody you particularly got your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all of the candidates, and I assume more will emerge. Once kind of the playoff teams, happen and all the other teams kind of clear out. So I assume more will emerge. But I have a couple requirements, I guess, but
Sure.
and maybe a couple coaches that I have my eye on. First of all, the requirement absolutely has to be offensive focused. This team, this whole approach with Zimmer did not work. We need to clear house, get rid of everyone in the entire organization, from the front office to down to the coaching staff, to the majority of the players on this team, other than more, especially on the defensive side. Offensive side, very promising. And that's why we got to lean on that. This team has a talent on the offensive side, and I really think that this isn't really necessarily a rebuild. I think next year, if we get our head coach right. And because we have the talent on the offensive side, if you have an awesome, dynamic, young up and coming offensive focused head coach, and you have Justin Jefferson, and you have Adam Thielen still, Delvin Cook, I mean, that team can do a lot, and you really don't even need to have that great of a defense. I mean, we already don't have that great of a defense with a defensive focused coach. So I don't necessarily think this has to be a massive rebuild, as long as you get the head coach right and you kind of transition out some of the old guard. So has to be offensive focused. Ideally calls plays. I want him to be. I want him to be younger, I guess. I mean, granted, there is Eric Bieniemy. He's in his 50s. I'd be open to Eric Bieniemy, but I would like him to be just a little bit younger. I think. I mean, Zimmer's in his 60s. He seems like he kind of had an old school approach. And I get that the older guys can keep in the loop and have modern approaches as well. But I would prefer younger. So really, it's just offensive focused and younger. And there's 2 guys that kind of fit that bill right now. It's Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, and Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator for the Bucks. Those both guys, they kind of fit those criteria. But heck, if another guy emerges, I'd love to look at him too.
Yeah, I think that's great input there. I think both of those guys come from very successful offenses this year, so I think they'd be very worthy candidates. And I like that you specifically mentioned that we should hire an offensive focus coach. I think that's definitely the move right now. Like you said, we got a lot of talent on this offensive side of the ball. Me and Bailey have been saying it for weeks that really this team has so much firepower there that I think a lot of coaches would really like. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So hopefully that's the direction we go. I'd imagine it would be. Usually that's how these things go when you fire head coaches. You just go back and forth opposite where you had a defensive guy for a while and you switched up to the offense because that's usually what you do. Because at this one's a little bit different of a situation just because usually when you have a defensive coach and your offense just gets worse over time to the point where it's just not nearly good enough to do anything. So then you fire them to bring in a guy to fix the offense. But right now it's more we have the players and personnel in place, but it's like it's not being used correctly. So I think there's just there's just a chance there to really maximize that, make ourselves maybe a one-dimensional team, but still a team that can win a lot of games because you can win a lot of games without a defense. I think once you get in the playoffs, it's a little bit dicier, but still, I think you win a lot of games and take steps forward. So I think that's what we got to do, and that's why I can't agree with you more about looking at guys like Kellen Moore or Byron Leftwich or a guy like Eric Bieniemy. So I think any of those guys make me excited if they would give them a look. But again, it's just really just reimagining the philosophy here in general. After Zim, I think he left this team much better than he found it when he came in 2014. I think he did a lot of good things for the organization. I think he made us a very respectable squad, a competitive squad. But it's just, I think it's run its course now. I think Zim is just a stepping stone coach. So I think cellar dwellers out there can hire Zim, and I think he'll turn them into a competitive team that isn't going to, he's like disaster proof. But at the same time, he's not going to win you a championship. So I think I'm at the point where we're shooting for Super Bowls. We're not shooting to go 8-8 and squeak into the playoffs or something like that. That's why I'm done with Zim. I'm done with Kirk. They revert back to the mean. It's just average. So I'm over that. It's boomer bust for me. If we boom, great. Obviously, then we have a chance to win a Super Bowl. If we bust, well, then he'll just be bad enough to get a really good draft pick and hopefully take a generational talent. Let's say like guys like Bryce Young coming up in a couple of years, where it's like you take this phenomenal quarterback that could be the franchise quarterback you've wanted for 60 years. So I think offensive focus is the way to go to kind of circle back here to end this conversation, but to bring it back down from the 1,000-foot view back to the here and now after this ugly loss to Lions, the Vikings still move forward because still have another 5 games left. So with that said, Jackson, do the Vikings pick up a Thursday primetime win against the Steelers team? I know the Steelers team is the only other squad to not put an L on the Lions record this year. So there's something to be said about that. But and plus they've just looked ugly if you watched any Steelers games this year, and Big Ben's aging and things like that. So I guess Kirk's primetime record too. But do you think we win this one or not?
Wow, you know what? This one's tough because in my instant reaction after losing the Lions game was I think that it was going to be a win. Just knowing this team, this team is average. You know, like this team will have horrible games, but then we'll also win some games. So
backs against the wall. This is when we win.
Exactly, it's when we win. So, but it. So I'm gonna say we're gonna win.
Okay.
I think I think we're gonna win. It's gonna be close again. But that's also who knows, because this team, it depends on some variables. Like if this team is truly, like if Zimmer has completely lost the locker room, then even though with Kirk and Zim, it's tough to completely get destroyed. But this is a game where you lost to one of the worst teams in the NFL and over the past like 5-10 years. So Adam Thielen might be out, and so who knows what that old line still. So we could get blown out too, and it could be ugly if Zimmer has lost the locker room. But if it's still roughly intact, Kirk is there, I think we win.
Yeah, I like that take. I think you summed up all the big points to talk about with this Vikings team and just the nature of it, because they've just become so predictable these days that you can just chalk it up like that and you just know it. But I think I'm going to flash it back a little bit. I saw this on Twitter and I found this very interesting, that 20 years ago, back in 2001, Vikings had Dante Culpepper, Randy Moss entering the primes of their careers. Very good players. The next season, I think Culpepper ended up throwing 39 touchdowns and being a borderline MVP candidate. And Randy Moss, everyone knows the story. He's one of the best receivers of all time. I think he is the best. But they had these franchise cornerstones on offense. And in 2001, they started 5-7, just like this team. They played the 0-12 Detroit Lions, got down big at the half, 20-7, came back in the game and lost it on the last second to give them their first win of the season. 2 weeks later, Danny Green is fired. How does that sound for parallels? So I think this team, if it was a noon game coming up here on Sunday instead of a Thursday night like it is, I'd probably say we win and we come out of nowhere and enter ourselves back in the playoff race and beat our chest and be like, yes, we're getting that seventh spot. But since it's a Thursday night primetime game, Kirk melts under the lights. Yeah, and when all the pressure's on, nah, he's just not there. I know he certainly played well in 2-minute situations this year, but I think it's more like if you look at all these games that he's doing this in, like none of them have been in the big spotlight. It's been all these noon games because Kirk, he's just such a creature of habit. So I think with the Thursday night game here, it's going to look ugly, especially against a really ugly Steelers team too. I think both these teams are in pretty similar spots right now with quarterbacks who are not the future. The Steelers, at least, I think have a better defense than we do, but I think they're just teams that are trying to squeak into the playoffs that aren't really going to do anything, and they'll just get dominated wild card weekend. So I think I'm just gonna pick the coaching then, and I'm giving the nod to Tomlin every single time, just because I think he can get his guys through a game like this and get them a win by any means necessary. Where I don't feel the same about the Zim and Kirk combo, just because they don't win very many games ugly, and I find this to be no different. So I'm saying this is a loss, and it's going to be like dare I say, like a 20-17 loss, like pretty low scoring. And I mean, we could just very well win for the reasons you said, but I'm gonna I'm gonna go with the side of the loss just because I'll also be kind of rooting for it inside, just because I want the better draft pick, give ourselves a better chance to take a great player. So
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of convincing, Roberta. I might have to say loss now too, but well, I'll stick to win. But yeah, just because it's a Thursday night game, I agree. Just because it's a Thursday night game, it could be, and it's going to be super ugly. The loss is definitely on the table.
yes, exactly. And did you have any final thoughts about the Vikings, whether it be this game or just the rest of the season or the organization in general, how they should approach this offseason? You got any final
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. I just want one last thought. Zimmer is
Sure.
obviously gone.
Yep.
We've established this. Zimmer's gone. So the interesting part is when you get into GM and you get into
Hmm.
quarterback, and
Hmm.
see if they move on there. I think we need to move off of the GM and the quarterback, but it'll be interesting to see if they do as well. Zimmer is gone 100%, but we'll see what
Yes.
they do. I think that they should try to get a veteran like Russell Wilson. I think that'd be a perfect trade partner,
Oh my
to slide
yes.
right in while you still have Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen still is a great wide receiver, and I think he will be for next maybe one or two more seasons. Go get Russell Wilson and let's
Sign me
play
up.
ball.
Yes, I totally agree. And Jackson, actually, one more question from that being said, with the GM and the quarterback possibly needing to be changed. At this point, which one do you think is more likely to be changed by ownership? Do you think they move off of Spielman, or do you think maybe they influence Spielman to move off of Kirk because they were the ones that were part of the driving force to take a quarterback with a significant pick in last year's draft?
I think it's Kirk. Kirk
I
is
think it's
more
Kirk.
likely to get moved off of than Spielman. I think just because Spielman is just a really close, like almost family friend of theirs. He's almost part
It
of the
seems like
Wilfs
it.
in a way.
Yeah.
It'd be like just firing one of their brothers from the organization. Seems like.
Yeah.
So
It's been
I
here
think,
15 years.
yeah. So and there is an argument to say that just to maintain some sort of just some form of just steadiness to the organization. Like bad teams blow up all aspects of the organization. So there's an argument to keep Spielman. I obviously think he should be let go as well. But the more likelihood is that Kirk is gone and Spielman is still here.
Yeah, I think so. With the longevity and how long, like you said, how close Spielman is with the Will family and how long he's been there, it's hard to see the day or really pick it out when he's going to be gone uh, for once. But I think Kirk being just the corporate quarterback that's been 500 here for 4 years in a row now. I think that's probably the move first to move off of him, and who knows, maybe they keep Rick, but it just depends how much they trust him to make the next head coaching hire, and if they think he can take this team to new heights. So I think Rick can probably reinvent himself as far as like strategy of building a team just based off who the head coach is, but I guess you don't really know that for sure. So like I wouldn't be outraged if we kept Rick around, but I'd be pretty indifferent and been like, that's okay if we let him go too at this point. I've been a big Rick guy for a while, but now I'm like, I'm kind of good with it, and I think it'd be all right if we move in another direction. Just hope we don't hire some goon out there that is going to blow up your team and take it way 3 steps back and just turn us into a dumpster fire. So that is a concern. But again, we're not playing to not be a disaster. We're playing to win Super Bowls. So I guess I'll leave it at that for now. But I look forward to talking more Vikings with you in the future. Jackson will definitely have you on the pod here, I'm sure, before the season ends. So looking forward to that. Thanks again for coming on tonight to talk some good old Vikings football, even when feels like we're in the doldrums of the season. So, and this franchise's history really is probably one of the lower points we've had in the last decade for sure. So probably since 2013, I'd say. So we'll leave it at that. We'll discuss more later, and I'll see how the rest of the season unfolds. But that's going to do it for this edition of North Star Takes podcast. As always, please hit the like button, whether it be because you want Zim fired or Kirk traded or Rick Spielman fired, or you're just looking forward to the Vikings offseason in general because this is just a lost season, or maybe you think the Vikings are going to still get in the playoffs and take that 7th spot. I mean, comment below whatever your thoughts might be. Maybe if you have a head coach in mind that you want the Vikings to pursue, certainly let us know, and we love to interact with you guys, whether it be in the comments or give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram as well at North Star Takes on Twitter and North Star Takes Podcast on Instagram. But hey, thanks again for listening. Appreciate the support, and Skol Vikings. But we know there's better days ahead than right now. But thanks again for listening.